My stepmom demanded I cook for her 3 kids. I've been raising myself since age 12. Now they're isolating me for refusing, and what I told them left them speechless. I'm 16 years old. I work part-time after school at an electronics store, and honestly, I need to get this off my chest because the situation at my house has become completely unbearable. I don't know if I'm being reasonable or if I really am the selfish monster my stepmother says I am, but I need to tell this to see if I'm crazy or what. I guess I should start at the beginning, when this whole making my own food thing started, because that's basically the root of all this drama. When I was 12 years old, like about 4.5 years ago, my mom got sick, cancer. I'm not going to go into details because it's still hard to talk about, but basically there came a point where she couldn't do much around the house anymore, you know. She was very weak and spent most of her time in bed or at the hospital. My dad worked all day. Like he left at 7 in the morning and came back at 6 or 7 at night, and I was an only child back then. So the thing is, I had to start doing a lot of things for myself. One of those things was making my lunch for school. At first it was super basic, like ham and cheese sandwich, maybe an apple, some crackers, whatever was in the house. But over time, I got better at it. I started watching YouTube videos on how to make simple meals, and honestly, it became something I enjoyed doing. It was like my moment of control in the middle of all the chaos. You know what I mean? My mom passed away when I was almost 13, and after that, my dad kind of shut down emotionally. I don't know how to describe it better. He kept working, kept paying the bills, but it was like he was on autopilot. He never asked if I needed anything, never checked if I'd done my homework, never offered to make dinner together or anything like that. We just existed in the same house. I kept making my lunches because, well, no one else was going to do it. And I started cooking simple dinners for myself too. Pasta, rice with chicken, that kind of thing. My dad ate what I left, or ordered takeout. He never said anything about it. That's how about 2 years went by, more or less. I became pretty independent, honestly. I washed my clothes, cleaned my room, managed my schedule. It was weird for a 13, 14, 5-year-old kid, I guess. But it was what it was. Then about a year and a half ago, my dad met Natalie. I don't know where exactly. I think on some dating app or something. He never told me the details. Things were super fast between them, like they met in January and by June they were already talking about getting married. Natalie has 3 kids from her previous marriage, twin boys who are like 6 years old now, I think, and an 1-year-old daughter. The first time I met them was weird. I mean, suddenly, my dad tells me, "Hey, we're going to dinner with some people," and it turns out they're basically my new family. The kids were fine, I guess. The twins were hyperactive like all kids that age are, and the 1-year-old girl was shy and didn't talk much. Natalie was super nice that day. Like, too nice now that I think about it. Asking me about school and my interests and all that. They got married in October last year. I was 15, almost 16. It wasn't a big wedding, just something at the courthouse and a dinner afterwards with some relatives. Natalie's kids moved into our house, which isn't huge to begin with, like 3 bedrooms, so the twins share one room, the girl has another, and I have mine. My dad and Natalie obviously have the main one. At first, everything was relatively normal. I mean, there was definitely more noise in the house. The twins are constant chaos, but I kept doing my thing, and they did theirs. I kept making my lunch every morning before going to school, and nobody said anything. But then, like after they'd been married for about a year, things started to change. One morning I was in the kitchen making my lunch. It was like 6:30 in the morning, and Natalie came down with all 3 kids. She saw me there with my bread, my ham, my stuff, and she said, "Hey, since you're making that, could you make lunches for the kids too?" Just like that, casual. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I was like, "What?" And she said, "Yeah. You know, since you're making yours, it's not that much more work to make 3 more, is it?" I told her no, that it was my lunch, and I made it for myself. She looked kind of surprised, like she couldn't believe I'd said no. And the kids were staring at me too. I felt uncomfortable, honestly, but I held my ground. I finished my lunch, put it in my lunchbox, and went to school. That night my dad talked to me. Well, talk is saying a lot. he basically told me. Natalie mentioned this morning's thing. Maybe you could help out a little more around the house. We're a family now. And I told him, Dad, I've been making my own food since I was 12. You never helped me with that. Why do I have to make food for her kids now? He was quiet for a moment, and then said something like, well, think about it, and left. Typical of him, avoiding any real conflict. After that, Natalie started with the manipulation tactics. First, it was passive-aggressive comments, like, must be nice to have time to make your own special food while others have to rush in the mornings, or things like, the kids asked me why you have a homemade lunch, and they don't. Then she started having the kids ask me directly. The twins would come and say, can you make us sandwiches like yours? And I felt horrible saying no, but I also wasn't going to let them manipulate me using the kids, you know? The one-year-old daughter, whose name is Emma, was the worst because she understood more of what was happening. Once she told me, my mom says you're selfish because you don't help us, and I just went to my room because I didn't know what to say to that. Things escalated when Natalie started asking me to babysit the kids. Like, I'd get home from school at 3:30, and she'd tell me, I have to go to the grocery store, watch the twins, or, I need you to help Emma with her math homework. And I'd tell her I couldn't because I had to do my own homework, or because I had a shift at work, and she'd give me that look like, really? You're going to be like that? My dad never said anything. He just locked himself in his room or pretended not to notice what was happening. What drove me crazy was that Natalie would leave the kitchen a complete disaster. Like, I always cleaned up what I used when I made my food, but she'd leave dirty dishes in the sink, spilled food on the counter, and then she'd tell me things like, since you're here, can you clean this up? And I'd say, I didn't mess up any of this. And she'd respond, but we all live here. We should all help. And I thought, where was that philosophy when I was 13 years old and nobody was helping me with anything? The big confrontation happened one Saturday morning. I was making my breakfast, just scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy, and Natalie came into the kitchen with her whole attitude. She told me, we need to talk about your attitude in this house. I asked her what she meant, and basically she let me have it. That I was selfish, that I didn't contribute to the family, that the kids saw me as an example, and I was showing them it was okay not to help others. All that garbage. And I exploded. Honestly, I told her, these aren't my kids. I didn't ask to be part of this blended family. I've been taking care of myself since my mom died because my dad didn't. And now I'm supposed to take care of your kids too? Are you serious? She turned red, like completely red, and screamed at me that I was an ungrateful child, that my dad gave me a roof and food, and the least I could do was help. My dad came down because he heard the yelling. I told him everything Natalie had been asking, and he basically told me the same thing she did, that I should contribute more, that we were a family. And I told him, Dad, I work, I pay for my phone, I buy my clothes, I make my own food, I clean my room. What more do you want me to do? And he told me, it's about being part of a team. I was so frustrated, I just went to my room and didn't talk to either of them for the rest of the day. After that, things got worse. Natalie started expecting me to cook dinner not just for myself, but for the whole family. One night I got home from work around 8. I was starving, and she tells me, can you make some dinner? The kids already ate, but your dad and I haven't. And I told her, no, I'm going to make something for myself and that's it. She looked at me like totally offended and said, wow, how nice. I made my pasta, ate it in my room, and heard her complaining about me to my dad all night. Then they had like an intervention with me. They literally sat me down in the living room, my dad and Natalie, and told me we needed to establish new rules. Basically, they wanted me to make lunches for all 3 kids 3 times a week, help with dinner twice a week, babysit the kids when Natalie needed to go out, and help Emma with homework. All of this on top of my job, my school, my own responsibilities. I told them no, that it wasn't fair, that they weren't my kids, and it wasn't my responsibility. My dad said that as long as I lived under his roof, I'd follow his rules. And I thought, you know what? Fine. The next day I went to the grocery store and bought my own food. Not stuff from the family pantry, but my own things that I put in my room. I bought a used mini fridge on Facebook Marketplace for like $50 and put it in my room too. From that moment, I started cooking only for myself, buying only what I was going to consume, being completely independent when it came to food. If they weren't going to respect my boundaries, I was going to force them to leave me alone. Natalie got furious when she realized. She confronted me like, "What do you think you're doing?" And I told her, "Following the rules, I'm taking care of myself." She said, "If you're not going to help with the kids, then you can't eat this family's food." I responded, "Perfect. I don't plan to." My dad was there and didn't say anything. He just looked uncomfortable. Natalie told me I was being ridiculous, that I was dividing the family, all that emotional manipulation. But I was fed up already, you know. I didn't care anymore what they thought. Things reached their peak like a week later. I got home from work. It was like 7 at night, and the kids were in the living room watching TV, but they looked hungry. Natalie was in her room talking on the phone. I went to my room, got my stuff, and made myself a decent dinner, like grilled chicken with rice and vegetables. The smell obviously spread through the whole house. I went down to eat in the kitchen because I wasn't going to hide, and the twins saw me, and one asked me, "What are you eating?" I told him, "My dinner," and he said, "I'm hungry." I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I felt bad, but it also wasn't my responsibility, so I told him, "Your mom must be making some dinner soon." Natalie came down and saw me there eating. The kids told her they were hungry and she exploded at me. She yelled at me about how I could be there eating while her kids were hungry, that I was a heartless monster, that I was just as negligent as my dad. That hurt. I'm not going to lie. I told her, "I told you I was going to cook only for myself. You guys decided that was okay. It's not my fault you didn't plan dinner for your own kids." She told me I was a piece of garbage, that I wasn't part of this family, that she didn't want me in her house. My dad arrived at that moment and basically took her side, told me I'd crossed a line, that the kids were my responsibility too. That night, they basically told me that either I started contributing or I left the house, and I'm 16 years old. I can't leave legally. I have nowhere to go. So, I'm like, trapped. I told them, "Okay, I'll stay, but I'm not going to do anything more than what I already do." Natalie said, "Then you're not part of this family, you're on your own." And I said, "Perfect." The next morning I got up, made my lunch as always, went to school. When I got back, Natalie was waiting for me. She told me, "This is your last chance. Tonight you cook dinner for everyone or you're completely cut off from everything. No Wi-Fi, no using the washer, nothing." I told her I already paid for my phone, so I didn't care about Wi-Fi, and I could go to the laundromat. She looked like in shock that I wasn't bending to her demands. Now I basically live like a stranger in my own house. I cook in my room with an electric griddle I bought. I eat in my room. I do everything in my room. I only go down to shower and use the bathroom. My dad and Natalie give me dirty looks all the time. The kids are confused and don't talk to me much anymore, which breaks my heart because it's not their fault. But I'm not going to let them use me as a free babysitter and cook. Last Friday, there was another confrontation. Natalie and my dad knocked on my door around 9 at night. They came in and basically gave me an ultimatum. Either I start being part of the family and contributing with the kids, or I leave when I turn 18. I told them that was fine, that when I turned 18 I was going to leave anyway. My dad looked sad, like really sad for the first time in years, and for a second I thought maybe he was going to take my side, but then he just said, "I hope you reconsider your attitude." And I said, "I hope you reconsider yours." Natalie told me, "You're not part of this family. You're alone." And I responded, "I've been alone since I was 12 years old. This is nothing new to me." They left my room, and I heard them arguing in the hallway. My dad was telling Natalie that maybe they were being too hard on me, and she was telling him that I was the problem, that I was manipulative, that I was dividing the family. And I just thought, how ironic that she accuses me of dividing the family when she's the one who came in and made ridiculous demands. I don't know what's going to happen now. I keep going to school. I keep working. I keep living in my room like a hermit, basically. Sometimes Emma knocks on my door and asks if I'm mad at her, and I tell her no, that I've never been mad at her or her brothers. But she doesn't understand the whole situation because she's only 11 years old. The twins stopped asking me things. My dad basically doesn't talk to me unless it's absolutely necessary. Natalie acts like I don't exist. The thing is, I don't regret maintaining my boundaries. Maybe that makes me selfish, I don't know, but I feel like if I had given in on this, I would have opened the door for them to use me for everything. I already do so much for myself. I work, I pay for my things, I take care of myself. Why do I have to take on parental responsibilities for kids who aren't even mine? Why does my dad, who basically abandoned me emotionally after my mom died, now expect me to do the work that he and his new wife don't want to do? There are moments when I feel guilty, especially when I see the kids. It's not their fault. They're in the middle of this. But then I remember all the times Natalie manipulated me, all the times my dad didn't defend me, all the times they expected me to sacrifice my time and energy for a family that never really made me feel welcome. And then the guilt goes away. I guess in a year and a half I'm leaving here anyway. I'm already saving from work. I have like $1,000 saved up. I plan to go to college in another city, get student loans, work, whatever it takes to get out of this house. And yeah, it's sad that my relationship with my dad is basically destroyed, that I'll probably never have a relationship with Natalie or the kids, but I don't see another way out. I'm not going to let them turn me into a free domestic worker in my own house. Sometimes I wonder what my mom would say about all this. I think she'd be proud that I learned to take care of myself, but she'd also be sad that I had to. She'd be disappointed in my dad, definitely, for not being there for me when I needed him. And she'd probably tell me to maintain my boundaries, not to let anyone walk all over me. At least that's what I want to believe. For now, I continue in my routine. I wake up, make my breakfast and lunch in my room, go to school, go to work, come back home, make my dinner, do homework, sleep, repeat. It's lonely. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I hear the family downstairs laughing or watching movies together, and I feel like a ghost in my own house. But I prefer this to being used. You know what I mean? I'd rather be alone than be exploited. And maybe that's wrong. Maybe I should be more flexible, more willing to compromise. But I feel like I've already compromised enough in my life. I've already lost enough. This is my line in the sand and I'm not going to cross it.